The new covenant temple is the spiritual kingdom of God. The new covenant temple is the spiritual kingdom of God in you individually as a believer. In this local assembly, corporately, us together are the temple of God. And the universal church worldwide, the collection of all believers, all make up the spiritual temple of God. So the question is, does that matter to you? Does the spiritual temple of God matter to you? For example, your own spiritual growth. If you are the temple of God, your spiritual, shouldn't you be concerned to make that the best, most beautiful temple that it can be? Or is your attitude that you like to dabble in sin, holiness, well, you could say sanctification is a progressive thing, right? So I'm still down here, a little sin, If that's your attitude, that is not the attitude of Paul when he says, present your bodies a living sacrifice. If that's your attitude toward building the temple, you are in danger of bringing the curses of Haggai down upon you because of your sin. And your apathy toward building the temple of God. What about the local church here, this IRBC? We collectively are the temple of God. Do you care about that? Does the guy in the folding chair behind you, does it matter to you what his spiritual condition is? Or is it kind of like, as long as me and my family are doing okay, the rest of the church can crash and burn, I was trying to think of like a barometer of how we could tell this. So one example might be when we're getting together, we're talking about whatever we're going to talk about, whether that be politics or business or labor. I hear that's a big topic among the ladies. Never talked about it myself, but suit yourself. Anyway, whatever we're talking about, are we interested in what God says about that? Are we talking about what God says about that and building each other up spiritually, or are we just interested in our own ideas? So how often does what God says come up in our conversations? Might be an interesting thing to think about as we're having these conversations. What about growing the kingdom of God to unbelievers? Evangelism. Does that matter to you? It should. A barometer of that might be, has anyone ever heard the gospel articulated by your lips? An unbeliever. Has an unbeliever ever heard you articulate the gospel? If not, does that concern you? Or even within your own family, your children. Have your children ever heard you articulate the gospel to them? Or are you just kind of assuming they're going to pick it up? If that's the case, you got a question, does the temple of God, does building the temple of God really matter to you? Or is it just kind of secondary importance like it was to these Jews? Again, if so, beware lest the curses of Haggai fall upon you.